Hey everyone, welcome back to Thetis Harbor. Today we're building a brand new predator enclosure for two very different hunters that traditionally don't play well with each other. With steep walls, deep water, and another different viewing experience, this may feel simple, but it's what brings the rest of this park together. Let's jump into building their new home in Jurassic World Evolution 3. We're going to start the build today by creating a walkway that's going to go around two sides of this enclosure. These are going to be next to the aquarium that we already have, and then it's going to come up from the lagoon that has the plesiosaur and also the Atrociraptor as guests are walking past those. I don't want to have a traditional viewing gallery to see both the Herrerasaurus and the Atrociraptor in this enclosure here. We don't need to focus on dinosaur visibility for this park specifically, so as long as we have another way to view the dinosaurs, I'm going to call that sufficient for what we're looking for here. I don't like using a ton of viewing galleries as I feel like they're a little bit unnecessary, and they take away from some of the realism that we can have in some of these parks. Not every enclosure that you'd see with the animal has a larger building that we go in to view those, and so having something that's gated and fenced off here is going to be sufficient for what I'm hoping to have here. But it does mean we're going to want to have some secure and safe distances from our animals here, and with these both being dinosaurs that I feel like you don't want to get too close to, we're going to make sure that that's a more elevated experience for us. We did put down the lagoon viewing dome, and so we're going to use that eventually here, but I don't always build linearly. I have this small piece here to remind me we're going to have to come back to it as we get further along in this build. But it's not too far away. Again, this wasn't the most complicated build to make. It just was something that I wanted to do to tie everything from this park together and wrap up this lower part of the park. We're not going to expand to the higher part of this as we don't need to quite yet, and I want to make sure we have sufficient space for when we have additional dinosaurs coming to Jurassic World Evolution 3, and we'll continue to add them to this campaign. Our remote viewing gallery is going to be positioned so that just as you're passing the Metriacanthosaurus, you're going to be able to take that turn, and before you get into the aquarium, you can pop in, and if you want to go in to look a little bit closer to both the Atrociraptor and the Herrerasaurus, you can go through this building here to get a little bit closer. Again, we're going to do a lot of playing with the remote viewing experience here a little bit more to make this feel a little more like what I would expect this to look like. But if you have ideas on how to make this even better in the future, again, we're going to be back in Thetis Harbor, I'm sure plenty of times in the future as we get more and more animals added to the game. Put those ideas in the comments. I'm always looking for different ways to add to this or to the rest of the parks in the campaign. And we're going to get some additions to the campaign as we have the DLC for Rebirth coming in just about a week here. And so we'll be going through that here very shortly. But for now, we're going to just finish up the remote viewing gallery entrance that we have here right now. And I'm trying not to make it too fancy or too much of a showstopper or anything like that. I want this to just feel like it's functional and it gets people into that remote viewing dome here, but also just having fun with a lot of these things here. I wanted to make sure we had a lot of this brick and then the off-whites that we've used in a couple other parts of this park. And then I've started to use a lot more of this seafoam greenish color. I don't actually know what color it technically is, but this greenish color is one that I'm going to be using throughout a lot of the park here to try to tie it all together. That's going to be on some of our signs, it's going to be on some of the banners that we have, or most of the banners that we have throughout all of the park here, but just want to make sure that we can tie everything together here before we put a pause on this park and then move on to one of the other ones we've already done in the campaign. It's always fun for me to go back to things like this that we've already started to build and we have an idea of which dinosaurs we want to have in these parks. Maybe we'd make a few adjustments, but going back and editing these as we're going to continue to get more of these dinosaurs, and the parks are going to evolve over time, which I think is normal for a lot of parks, that maybe you start with one animal and then we're going to get a different one over time. But every time I feel like we get a little bit better at building these enclosures and these parks here, that's where I get a lot of satisfaction in building these parks here. We're going to tie all this together again with just some more of the brick walls and then having some of the small fence pieces on top of it just as an additional barrier so no one accidentally gets into the Atrociraptor or the Herrerasaurus depending on which side you wanted to climb over. Similar to what we did with the Dunkleosteus Lagoon, we're going to have some of these fountains that just overlap over the top of each other, and then we're going to start working on the viewing dome and specifically how we're going to get into it. So what I want to do is I want to create some bridge from the actual viewing gallery entrance to get all the way to this dome here, where in theory our guests would go into the building, they'd take this bridge of sorts across, and then it's either a staircase or an elevator. You can pick your own adventure, I guess, but it's going to be a way that our guests can be able to get into this building or this dome here, other than just going underground, because we're already going pretty low here. We've never been super clear on how they get into the, I mean, they know they have a technically they have a connection there. So I guess they always are supposed to go under. But for this, we're going to imagine that they're taking this building, this bridge, from the entrance all the way over here. And again, we're going to use more of this like seafoam greenish color to try to bring a lot of this together. And then once we get this all connected here, we just need to create a few more of these pillars that are going to go along the bottom of this and give it a little bit more support, because it is not realistic for us to have this entire thing held up by one pillar. The biggest reason that I wanted to use the lagoon viewing dome here is because to separate both of these dinosaurs, we're going to use the deep water because neither of these dinosaurs can swim, at least now. And so we'll have two separate enclosures that feel like they're connected, but in reality, neither dinosaur can actually interact with each other. The space is going to be a little bit tight, so we're not going to be using too many juveniles in this. Neither of these are going to have nests in them. And it's something that I've evolved more in building these. I'm not going to build every single enclosure in a way that's going to have juveniles in it. We didn't do this for the aquarium that has the Leoplorodon and the Kronosaurus, and a couple other spaces. We're just not going to have a lot of juveniles. I feel like it's going to save a little bit of the space here that we would normally need to use in campaign, but also I don't want to manage some things like the Spinosaurus that tend to expand incredibly quickly and making it a lot more challenging to enjoy building something in any of these campaign parks. So we're going to go to that when we go to Japan next here. But wrapping up everything here, we just need to make sure that we have some gates that can get into both sides of these for both of the dinosaurs. And then we're going to continue that rock wall that we've got going to try to bring both sides of this, a little bit more of these cliff sides. We've used these for a bunch of our lagoons and then for Metriacanthosaurus and a few other dinosaurs that are in here. So we'll just do that, connect a few of these paths over here. So we're going to have some wider spaces for our guests to be able to navigate, even if they don't actually navigate all of the spaces here. And then it's just going to be about playing with the environment tools that we have here. Herrerasaurus and Atrociraptor have very similar environment needs, but I don't want these enclosures to feel like it's perfectly uniform on both sides of this here. So we're going to be using a few blueprints from the wetlands as well as an old shade we built previously so our dinosaurs can cool off in the heat. But this is going to wrap up Thetis Harbor for now, and we're headed to Katsuyama, Japan to rebuild much of that park. With 100% complexity already hit, that is going to require a ton of change to keep our predator count up, and we'll also be adding Dracorex along the way. If you want to see a few of those builds while we prep for the Rebirth DLC next week, be sure to hit the subscribe button so you don't miss those. Until then, enjoy the rest of the video, and I will see you on the next build.